What is going on, squad? Chris from NoLimitSquad, your personal Isochain and fitness vlogging channel. Probably haven't heard that in a while, right? Today we're going to go over the Isometric Manual by Wade. It is so good, guys. I've been referring to the manual for well over a year now. It hasn't let me down yet. In fact, I've been trying to prove some of the information in the manual wrong and have failed every time that I tried. It really has been a lifesaver in figuring out how to program these Isochain exercises, figuring out how to set them up. Half of the channel is from that manual and the other half is just from, trying it out and knowledge that I have from PT, kind of intermixing both. This has been a wealth of information. If you haven't read this book, here's a link down below. I highly recommend checking that out. And listen, I am an affiliate, but it's not even about the money, guys. Just get educated. What I wanted to do today is go over the top 10 pieces of information that I took from the Isometric Manual. Alright, so number 1, Hebs Rule. Muscle fibers that wire together, fire together. It's interesting because when I was first learning about the Isochain and everything, I was like, I don't doubt the strength. I don't doubt it. You already showed me Bruce Lee. That's all well and good. I don't doubt the strength. It's just, is it going to carry over to the weight room? Alright? But remember, if we're training a specific way, muscle fibers, if you're wiring those muscle fibers to fire like that, it's going to fire like that every single time. So if you're training for 6-second contractions and you go all in at the gym, right? Because not only do we get a lot stronger, but our muscles are conditioned for those fast twitch, explosive movements. So why wouldn't it transfer? Definitely check out the Isochain exercise science playlist. It's a lot of great stuff, so go ahead and check that out. Fantastic. Number 2. The immediate after effect. Out of all of these top 10s, this is the only one I haven't done a video on. So it's gonna have its own video, don't worry. I've just been waiting for the right time to do it, alright? And it's coming soon. So the immediate after effect is saying, for example, let's say we are doing the barbell shoulder press and we are struggling with our barbell shoulder press. Well, the immediate after effect is saying that if we do the Isochain right, like 6-second contractions, right before we go into the dynamic equivalent, the barbell equivalent, we'll get strength gains up to 20% more right there, right then and there, in those next couple minutes on the barbell shoulder press. That is wild. That is one of the principles I wanted to disprove for a long time. I really wanted to do it with squat, guys, and I really wanted to do it with deadlift. For a long time, squad members, you guys know why I didn't do it with those two. But the barbell shoulder press is on my list for one of the things that I want to demonstrate for the squad to see if that's really BS or not. Like I said, right now, I've lost every time I tried to prove the book wrong. I've lost every time. Not that I doubt any of this already. It's just, it's proven itself many-fold over. But the immediate after effect, isn't that crazy? So like, let's say if, like, for example, right now, and this is not a flex, it's just what it is. Alright, so my barbell shoulder press is 185. I hit 6 yesterday. So my goal is to get 10 before the year's out. I'm totally confident I'll hit it. But I wonder what my max is. So I'm going to try and figure out my max. And then I'm going to get stuck. And I'm going to use the Isochain and try and blow through my max that very same day. If it's bullcrap, then it's bullcrap. I don't know, guys. I guess we'll find out when that video comes out, right? So, immediate after effect. Stay tuned for that video. Number 3, the superhuman 5% strength increase daily. The manual has mentioned that if we stay consistent with the Isochain, if you document all your progress, for example, like let's say we have my Sweet 16 or Bruce Lee is the Dragon, where it's like a 1x6 protocol, and the next day you do it, and everything, if you total all the numbers, like the total poundages, the next day you do it, if you get an increase over like of 5%, then that's considered in the superhuman range. And I can totally attest to that because I don't really hit 5 like that. There are days where I've hit a couple in a row that are 5 and above, but it's not often. It's usually 1, maybe 2, you know, some 0.04 bull crap, you know, for increases. And to me, that makes sense considering how traditional weightlifting and calisthenics and all that, and how we develop strength and lean muscle mass and tissue. That makes sense to me. So 5% really is interesting. I was like, no way. Number 4, bulletproofing. Bulletproofing the joints. My knees have never been the same since starting the Isochain programming. From the very first one, the Sweet 16, when I switched to the second Isochain program, which is the Power 45, right in the middle of that, even though my back started hurting, my knee pain was gone, and it has remained gone, which I find fascinating. So essentially, the soft tissues and the joint in question has been bulletproof by going all in on these 6-second isometric contraction at that point for only, I think, like 6 to 8 weeks, and now it's been over a year. No problem. Number 5, CNS fatigue. As with any training, there's always a cause and effect, and if the Isochain is essentially a shortcut to dramatic strength gains, then there has to be a side effect. There is nothing out here that is just, you know, a quick and easy fix without some type of side effect. I'm sorry. We are not careful with our Isochain programming, whether we're IO or hybrid lifters, this whatever, you will catch up with CNS fatigue will sneak up on you so quickly. You're like, yo, why am I tired all the time? Not just, I mean, period. Like throughout the day, just, yo, why am I tired? And I talked about that in my CNS fatigue video. Just like, whoa, it's so sneaky. It's not like DOMs. It's not like there's no gas left in the tank. It's just, that's it, man. Your body's just turning the switch off. It's like, yo, chill. Number 6 that I thought was pretty interesting. I just mentioned it earlier. Isometrics are the most powerful form of strength production that there is. And when I first read that, okay, like I said, I'm a pretty open-minded dude. I did kind of, you know, when I first read that, I'm like, alright. Like I said, you know, I've been lifting for a while, and, you know, concentrics have always been the move for me. Maybe some of y'all on the channel can relate. It's like, you know, concentric, man, that's where they're just, you know, all in, let's go, baby. But then to say, I'm like, you know what, now wait a minute. I was like, wait a minute, let me hear what they have to say, and I finished reading that section. And I was like, you know what? That makes sense. And you know what I thought of first? I thought of the 6 inches, the plank exercise, and my back extensions. I've always done Roman chair or the hyperextension machine back extensions. And I've always, for years, guys, I've always had a 25-pound plate, and I've come up into the prone position and held it for 5 seconds because this is one of those things where it's like some dude taught me this, you know, years ago before I even knew about exercise science, and I just kept doing it because I felt the strengthening effects, and I'm like, yo, my core is really strong, and I'm like, it's starting to be stronger than average. I'm like, is that normal? The ab exercises that I do and the combined with the back extension where I hold it for time, I'm like, no one's really doing this, and I have not suffered a single issue with my core still. So now I'm like kind of retroactively looking at it, I'm like, wow, I think that's right. My lower back is really strong. Now what's funny is I started having all these issues. When I blew my back out doing deadlift, I actually stopped doing those hyperextension back extensions on that piece of equipment with the 5-second holds, and I started doing RDLs. So at that time I had given up for about 2 years. I gave up the isometric back extension, and that's when I started running into problems. I'm like, this makes sense. I gave that up and I went for, you know, concentric, eccentric. I opened myself up to more risk. To me, that makes sense. Some of the squad might, you know, disagree. You know, comment down below. I'm always open to opinions and everything. Number 7, angle specificity. So when I was learning about isometric training, it was right around like 2017 when I started to get that bug. I was like trying to figure out how to really take it to the next level. And while I was screwing around at work on the computer when I shouldn't have been, that's when I ran into Jarrell Lindsay. Jarrell, if you're for some reason watching this video, what's up, bro? I love your content. I love everything that you've put out for overcoming isometric training and just isometric training in general. I ran into that article, and while he briefly mentioned it, we were talking about the angles, and I started seeing it in other places too. Like, isometrics are stupid because you only get strong at that angle. You only get strong at that angle, so what's the point? It's not really complete training, blah, 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 blah. And then they covered it here, and they talked about angle specificity, and they're like, yes, you do get strong at that angle, but there's also the spillover. And it's like, you do get strong at the other areas too, just not as much as the angle in question. So like I said, I have a whole video on that, you should check that out. And I'm like, that makes sense. It doesn't, like, anatomically and structurally, it doesn't make sense to just get strong here.
Think about that. That's just dumb.
So you mean to tell me I can, you know, move boulders at this angle, but at this angle I'm completely useless? That makes no sense at all. So I went and covered that too. Number 8, the force velocity curve and its dynamic equivalent. I love this. TikTok really hates this. I know that some of y'all have joined the squad from Hampton's channel. What's up, what's up? I love you guys because you're open-minded. I'm talking about the ones that were just, they immediately dismissed it without ever giving it a chance. And they're like, oh, well, I want to see you, oh, you push 200 on the Isochain shoulder press? Well, I want to see you do that dynamically. That actually just happened, was today, Thursday, a couple days ago, and I went and responded. I was like, you're right, I cannot do that. I cannot do that weightlifting because the force velocity curve. We can push, our maximum forces are when we cannot move. So when we start to add movement in, the force is less because there's friction there. Now I'll go into that as well, have a video on that as well to cover all of that because that's what I was like, I found that interesting. So it definitely deserved its own video, but once the science was explained, which is why I keep telling them to check out the link in the bio, they don't listen, to get educated on Isochain. That's why I tell them. It makes perfect sense why the static equivalent, the absolute strength, is always going to be higher than its dynamic equivalent. Number 9, mechanical abrasion and mechanical tension. Now, I did know about mechanical tension already. I've been talking about that for a long time with clients and just... So mechanical tension, I knew about that. Mechanical abrasion, it makes sense, you know, with the whole sandpaper analogy and you know, the higher loads and forces that we're putting on our muscle groups that we're working. The joint that's holding that muscle group up, the heavier the weight, the more it's shaving off at those joints. Makes sense to me. So even though we're getting stronger, we're shaving off at the very joint power that's giving us the mobility to push that weight up. So now the Isochain is giving us a way to literally have our cake and eat it too, which I just think is pretty awesome. Why it has its own video and why I'm only spending probably 30 seconds explaining that, which is why we're also going to number 10, the final piece, hypertrophy. This was one of the biggest eye raisers for me, and I don't think that it's a surprise that isometric hypertrophy, the video on my channel, is one of the most viewed videos on my channel right now. I think it's close to 5,000 views, which isn't huge, but when you're a small YouTuber, that's actually a lot. Like, interesting. So people also wanted to know about that because I know I did. I didn't think you could get big using, you know, isometrics. So there's a lot of things, moving parts here. You know, the loading reflex, cortical inhibition, the correct load, the correct time under tension, the whole 20 to 45 second thing that I've mentioned many times on the channel. There's a second part to that video, the isometric hypertrophy part 1 and part 2. Highly recommend checking those out too. The main reason why we don't really see too much isometric hypertrophy out here is because, 1, people really discredit isometrics. 2, concentric and eccentric phases of the lift have always worked, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get a lot of people's mentality because I had it until I got educated. And 3, for the limited amount of knowledge that people do know about isometric training, they think that those small contractions just can't stimulate hypertrophic response, and they're right because the load's not right. That would be why. As long as the load is right and the time under tension is correct, then we can stimulate a hypertrophic response. And I have proven that personally. I have proven that another of the squad members, Ted Crochure, he has proven that. I haven't even got a chance to talk to yet, and they've already proven. In fact, if you guys haven't checked out the Facebook group for the Isochain, check that out. It's a great community of people. You know, we're all talking about, you know, ways to get better on the Isochain there, so definitely check that Facebook group out. Everybody's cool, you know, there's no like ego stuff going on there. It's just straight up knowledge and straight up sharing. So definitely check that out. Come join the group over there. Those are the 10. There's an honorable mention, which was the Springfield frog experiment, which is what started everything. Paul, Wade, and and the team at Dragon Door were really smart at putting that in the beginning, because that did get me to start thinking about it. It's like, wow, that frog's leg was huge. So you're telling me that frog experienced not only strength but also hypertrophy. So it does work, you know. But that's the frog. What about humans? And it even says that in the book. That's a frog. What about humans? So that's what started everything. I've gone through the book multiple times already, but we're never done learning. When we go through the book for a second and third time, there are things that we may have read over that we probably weren't paying attention to that stick out the second and third time. And I was like, huh, interesting, okay. You know, so that's why it always pays to read a book multiple times over, because you always learn different things each time you read the same book. Even after, you know, learning this book inside and out, you know, I still got a long way to go. I mean, this is 440 pages. I don't know every single thing off the top of my head from that book, but a lot of it has stuck. It has completely changed how I train my clients. The best part about it is I see the results that they were talking about now with my clients as well. That has just made training so much more effective and helpful to my clientele, and I couldn't be more thankful, honestly, for the book and the team at Dragon Door and Paul, Wade, and everything. What do you guys think, though? What were some of the key takeaways that you took from the Isometric Manual? If you read it, if you did, I would like you to comment down below, share the love, share the wealth. Hopefully you guys found this pretty valuable or entertaining in some way. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to drop a like, go ahead and comment. If you're not yet part of the squad, hit that subscribe button. What are you waiting for? Come join the squad with us. Let's get strong together. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Combat fatality in your face blood.